Fishbowl Radio Network, FBRN.US. You're logged on to the Commission Radio Show with Ed Gray, the Commissioner. This is Escalade by the famous Jeff Aycock here on the Commission Radio Show, FBRN.US. We got 60 seconds. Screens, folks.
Hi, this is Kelly Allen Gray, Fort Worth City Council District 8, and I look forward to continuing to serve you after the May election, bringing economic development, quality, affordable, safe housing choices across the district, and our first ever in the state of Texas standalone children's library to East Lancaster. Join me as we continue to build a better District 8 together. And whenever I want to know what's going on across DFW, I tune in to the commish with Ed Gray. Join me in listening.
All right, Commish Radio Show back again for the second hour. The first hour, if you were tuning in, the first hour you saw me talk about Mr. Austin Sheffield and also what I consider to be a conspiracy of silence where this lady during Women's History Month was all alone. A lot of civic leaders somehow were quiet as well. Some civic leaders and some also police leaders were quiet as well. I'm not scared, folks. I'm not scared at all. That's just the way I am because I know this whole thing that I'm going through in life, I know how it's going to end. You know, it's going to end, hopefully, it's going to end with me telling the truth about what is right and what is wrong in America today. And when I see something wrong, I call people out. They can either adjust to it, change it, but they can't deny it if it's the truth. And that's the truth, Ruth. I've been waiting to say that for about a month now. About a month.
Well, you had your opportunity. There you go.
I got it in. First hour, we talked to Mr. Stephen Mason, Mayor Pro Tem of Cedar Hill, Texas, now running for mayor of Cedar Hill, Texas. He's talking about smart growth. And in this hour, we are talking to Miss Kelly Allen Gray. Action with a purpose, and she says she's going to work. And before we get started on this, I want everyone to know Gray is a very common name, and we're not related. I just wanted to go ahead and say that because some people have asked me, they say, you going to interview your family, relatives, or anything like that? And no, me and Miss Kelly Allen Gray are not related, but we are together on the Commish Radio Show bringing you the best in political information and social justice from Como to the Congo. Welcome to the Commish Radio Show.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Right, thank you. Well, we've already got it established we're not related. Who are you?
So, I'm Kelly Allen Gray from Riverside. How about that?
All right.
I'm Kelly Allen Gray, who has served on Fort Worth City Council since 2012. I took over an unexpired term and through a runoff and won by 68 votes, and then had to come back in 2013 and then run for a full term in 2013. And it has been an amazing journey. And I tell everybody every single day that I am living my dream. My passion has always been to help people and to help others have a better life. And I started out, before I came to council, working for a nonprofit organization doing community revitalization in my community, and then it branched out across the city. And I took a sabbatical. I took a 1.5-year sabbatical. Had literally lost my dad, my mom, my aunt, 2 of my uncles in about 18 months. And I had been the caregiver
So
for
hold
all.
on. You've lost how many?
I lost my mom, my dad, 2 of my uncles, and my aunt in an 18-month period.
Wow.
And I had been their caregiver. I had been the person who checked on them every day, did all of their business, made sure they got to and from the doctors, and just all of the different things that needed to happen, because my sisters and my cousins, everybody worked during the day, and they didn't have that flexibility. I had the opportunity to have that flexibility to be able to fill in those gaps. And so it took me back, because they were, all gone very quickly. And so I took a sabbatical, and as I was in the process of taking that sabbatical and trying to just really figure out what I was going to do next when I grew up again, my neighbors and different people in the city started coming and saying, hey, we have this council race that's happening, there's a congressional race that's going on. Would you be interested in running for city council? And on probably 4 different occasions, I said no. And then finally, my neighbor came and said, knocked on the door, and went to the door, and he said, hey, this is your first campaign contribution from my mom, and we're having a campaign meeting tonight because we've decided you're going to run for city council. And I ran for city council, and it's been the best thing that could have ever happened.
68 votes?
68 votes on my body, yes.
That's like, what, 2 classroom sizes?
It is.
That's it. 68 votes, and you've been there since what year?
2012.
2012? And in the other elections, what ended up happening in those?
So I think my next race in 2013, because my predecessor had come back to run, I think that vote may have been maybe 60-40. And then my 2 races, 2015, 2017, were probably 70-30, 80-20, something like that.
What do you consider to be your greatest achievement in office?
Being able to bring people together and being a voice for District 8, because for so long, so many people felt like we did not have a voice. And I've always lived in the district. As a matter of fact, I live in the neighborhood that I grew up in. So I literally just live 3 blocks from the house that I grew up in.
Okay, now, I'm not from Fort Worth. I'm from Dallas.
Yes.
Where is District 8?
So District 8 runs literally right through the middle of the city of Fort Worth. So I am council member to about 125,000 people. It's a very, very diverse district. So our boundaries, my northern boundary is 35 and Northside Drive. And then I take in a portion of downtown Fort Worth, and then I skip over, I cross over, and I go west down 35 and east down 35 once you get past Felix Street, and I literally go all the way down to Risinger. So it takes in, wow, I lost my train. Hold on. So it takes in the Greenway neighborhood. It takes in Riverside, West Meadowbrook, 1/2 of Central Meadowbrook, Hillside, Morningside, Historic Southside, a portion of Poly, a portion of Eastwood, Rolling Hills, Highland Hills, Hallmark Camelot, 1/2 of Meadow Creek, and then every piece of Fort Worth that surrounds Everman and Forest Hill is all in District 8. And then it goes down to Risinger.
Now, you walk in this district?
I walk my district, I ride my district. I have a 16-year-old son who could probably tell me about the places in the district because we ride together. I want to know what's going on, and I want to know really what's happening before someone calls our office. So at night when I'm coming home from meetings and I'm riding and lights are out, street lights are out, I'm literally stopping and taking pictures of the street signs so I can make sure I have block numbers. And then so normally about midnight, 1 o'clock, our transportation public works group, they get an email of different things that I've seen on my way home.
How quick do they get repaired?
So we have a 7-day turnaround.
All right. Because that's always good, because, in a lot of neighborhoods, you can say, hey, that's been out, and it's been out since Bush was president.
And that's
And
very
they'd
true.
be like, we're not talking about the second one, we're talking about the first one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And one of the things, though, I think as the city of Fort Worth, as we are growing, as we are recognizing that in many of our neighborhoods, we don't have people who pick up the telephone and call and say the street lights are out, or I have prostitutes hanging on my corner, or there's a drug house. They are depending upon me and city staff to be in their communities, and we're not always in those communities. That's not how we've been delivering services historically, and I think if you look at cities across the country, that's not how services are being delivered. They're being on a reactive basis versus a proactive basis, and that is my number one pet peeve, and part of the reason as we were out running the very first time in 2012 and walking across the district and seeing different things that you're just like, where's code compliance? Why is that lot next door to Miss Velma's house, why is that grass 5 feet tall?
Because the people in the neighborhood,
Because most of them are senior citizens, and they don't pick up the phone, and they don't call. They don't call their council member. Only, if something major happens. However, if you pay your taxes, you shouldn't have to call me and tell me the grass is high or the lights are out. We should be out knowing that the grass is high and the lights are out. So I don't want Miss Velma to have to call me. I want to make the call for Miss Velma. And so I spend a lot of time riding up and down streets, taking pictures. If you went through my cell phone right now, you'd see trash piles with street light, with street stops, with signs where those are, so I know, what this relates to. I'll be at church and people will come and say, Miss Gray, they picked up that one dump pile, and now it's another dump pile back. And I said, well, when I leave here, let me go by and take a picture, and I'll email it in. That's what I do. I am hands-on. I am everywhere my constituents are. So there's not a Sunday that I don't go to my 8 a.m. church service, that I maybe not pick up an 11 o'clock service if I don't go to church with my son, because my son is a drummer at another church, and so I try to support him as much as I possibly can. Or there's a 3:30 service. I want to be where the people are. I never want you to say, I voted for you and I don't see you. I actually had one lady who said, girl, I'm so sick of seeing you. I see you all the time. Could you please go home? I am sick of seeing you. But that's who I am, and that's what I got elected to do. And I stand firmly on that.
now, let's focus in on code compliance.
Okay.
And then we'll go on some other things. Because the reason why I want to focus in on that, because it seems like a lot of times in certain communities, black communities, because that's what I'm speaking of in this particular situation, that there is a lack of code compliance because the people in the community don't want to call in because they view that as snitching too.
Yes, you're right. But
They don't want to snitch even if it's if it comes to their benefit. And it's not snitching if you out of jail, it's snitching if you in prison. But if we need to do our communities and make our communities better, and if we're paying taxes, which we are paying taxes, we're paying property taxes, we're paying sales taxes, then we're paying for people who work for the city of Fort Worth
Paying
to
for
actually
those
do their
services.
job.
right,
So message, it ain't snitching. I just want to make sure.
it's not snitching.
No, I want to talk what
It's
people
not
can hear.
snitching. Yeah.
It ain't snitching. I know it's not, but I want to talk where they able to hear it. It ain't snitching.
It ain't snitching.
There you go.
It ain't snitching, my bad.
That's all right. That's all right. So,
But I do want to, can I elaborate just a moment on that? Because the other part to that is, and I tell everybody this, and we don't always think about it, and it's been really a decade now or more when our country went through that economic recession in 2008. Cities went through that economic recession in 2008 and 2009 as well. And so there were lots of budget cuts. that were made. And code compliance in the
Was one
city
of
of
the
Fort
first
Worth
ones.
was one of those departments that took a major hit. And so instead of how we delivered services prior to that recession, where we had code officers who went up and down each street and they wrote up all of the high grass and weeds and substandard houses and things like that. When that workforce dwindled, how they started to deliver services was very different, because it became reactive versus proactive. And so they worked on a complaint-based basis. And so if you are in communities like our communities where we don't call, and we are used to having services delivered one way, then it became our neighborhoods that were most negatively affected by those municipal cuts.
And to your point on that, and this is what I've been researching as well in environmental justice as well, when it comes to code compliance and dumping in communities of color. If people are used to a certain type of bench level or base level support system,
That's right.
then that's what they'll tolerate. It's not the fact that they'll take anything over. That's that they're used to it.
Yeah.
So if everyone ups the ante, so to speak, then we can do better. Speaking of upping the ante, is there any problems, or not problems, is there any redevelopment that's going on in your district?
We have lots of redevelopment that's happening. So we want to talk about economic development redevelopment. We want to talk about housing redevelopment. Tell me what you want to talk about redevelopment.
It seems like you're excited talking
I'm
about it.
way excited.
I saw that. Go ahead, talk to me.
Okay, so Evans and Rosedale Urban Village it's probably two square miles of vacant property and maybe two buildings that are all owned by the city of Fort Worth or our Housing Finance Corporation or Local Development Corporation. And it was a project that started being put together in 2005 and has just come forward. And there had been one point where the Starbucks companies was going to do the development, and then the recession came and they moved on. And so the city of Fort Worth has just continued to hold that land. But there was also a promise made to the community that we would not do anything on that property without them being at the table and being a part of that partnership. So now we just released, back in December, we released a request for expressions of interest out to the development community. All of those requests are back. We've chosen 3 finalists. The public got to actually judge the plans from those 3 developers, and I'm not sure how soon that developer is going to be named, but I know that probably within the next 15 to 30 days that will actually come forward at Evans Rosedale Urban Village. And then we are doing Hillwood Alliance South.
Hillwood
Alliance South. So if you know Hillwood and that whole Alliance Texas project north of 820 is an expensive place to be if you're wanting to move your company here into Dallas-Fort Worth.
Now that sounds like a Ross Perot type.
It is a
Okay.
Ross Perot project, and you know it's booming. And so what Hillwood discovered is they're losing a lot of business because not everyone can afford to be in Alliance. Those land values there to build are extremely high. However, they own property in South Fort Worth, still on 35, still on that NAFTA freeway, still being able to move goods and services north and south, and having great connections east and west. So we're doing a project with Alliance. They are moving into a smaller version of Hillwood Alliance is moving into District 8 and building an industrial complex. But also recognizing too that a lot of the workforce that goes north into Alliance and to Amazon and to Facebook and UPS and different places like that actually struggle if they have to use public transportation, because there is a bus stop. There's not that last mile. that gets you from that bus stop to those jobs. And so they're still struggling with that, and those businesses are there trying to work that out. However, in South Fort Worth, that's not our issue. Transportation does not become our issue because we can make Trinity Metro get wherever we need to get to the job sites. And so that's really exciting. And then Benny Keith, who has been in Fort Worth forever and ever, is doing an expansion at Carter Industrial Park. So they are actually adding, I think, almost 1 million square feet of space to their existing facility, bringing in another 280 jobs. Price with a salary range starting at about $75,000 a year, so which is really, really good because we're bringing more people in and then putting people to work. And then just across the freeway from Carter Industrial Park at Everman Parkway, Integrated Systems Project is doing a smaller version of a industrial complex, and they have several medium-sized companies who are actually relocating to Fort Worth, bringing more jobs down in the southern sector in District 8. So we're really excited about what's happening.
This sounds good. How many jobs is this going to take?
So,
how many jobs will be?
So I'm not, so actually in that industrial complex, they're looking at, just with the 3 businesses that they're bringing now, about 1,000 jobs.
1,000 jobs.
1,000 jobs. And for everybody, and I talk about this because I think it's very, for me it's exciting because when we put buildings back, we put people back into buildings that have sat vacant, it does so much for the community and then just for whatever corridor those vacant buildings have been sitting on. There was a Sam's Club at Campus Drive in 820, and Sam's closed and moved to Burleson, and that building had sat vacant since probably 2014, 2015. And they leased to several other businesses, but they didn't stay long. Well, you know, e-commerce is blowing up. Every company has an e-commerce business, and Sam's Club is no different. And so they retrofitted their existing Sam's Club building to be their new e-commerce building. So there's one in North Fort Worth, and now there's one back at that existing Sam's Club location. There's also one in South Dallas. So they just opened in January. They brought in their Sam's Club employees, actually had first choice in coming to work there. It's one shift, it's first shift right now. They pay, those jobs pay between $15, $20 an hour. They're adding their second shift starting in May, and then a summer shift starting in June or July. But what's exciting for me about that piece is if you are employed at that facility, and you want to go back to school or you want to start school, college, they are doing a partnership with TCC South Campus that you can go to school tuition free.
Sounds good. Now, these 1,000 jobs, and you mentioned they're on the south, the south side. These jobs that are there, and to induce these companies to come back or to just possibly be there in the first place, did we give them any tax abatements? Did we give them tax breaks?
No, not for the integrated system piece. There is no tax abatement associated with it.
All right, so guys, listen, folks at home, tax abatements, you know, that's when we pay companies to do things that, well, they criticize people for taking, which is to say people shouldn't take welfare, corporations take welfare too. So that being said, I know you couldn't say that, I didn't say that though. But anyway, we're talking about this is going to be.
I love it.
This is going to be.
Inquiring minds want it.